Once upon a time, nestled in the rolling hills of Middle America, there was a small, quiet town named Oak Ridge. It was the kind of town where everyone knew each other's names, where the mailman asked about your grandmother's health, and where the high school football games were the biggest event of the year. In this ordinary town lived an ordinary-looking teenager named Alex Carter. But behind his quiet exterior, Alex held dreams that were anything but ordinary. He dreamed of building things that could change the world, robots that could help people, software that could solve complex problems, and structures that could touch the sky. But life, as Alex knew it, was not a dream. It was a constant, grinding struggle. School was a battlefield where Alex lost every single day. He would sit in his history class, listening to his teacher, Mr. Harrison, talk about dates and ancient kings. The words would float around him, like smoke, but never sink in. He couldn't memorize the names or the timelines. To him, it was just a collection of facts with no connection to the real world he wanted to build. His report card was a testament to his struggle, filled with D's and F's. Mr. Harrison, a stern man who believed in discipline and tradition, saw Alex as a problem. "Alex," he would say in front of the whole class, his voice sharp with disappointment, "are you even listening? Daydreaming won't get you anywhere in life." The other students would snicker, and Alex would feel his face burn with shame. He wasn't daydreaming, he was thinking. He was thinking about how gears worked, how circuits connected, how a bridge could be designed to withstand an earthquake. But he didn't know how to explain that. His math teacher, Mrs. Gable, was no different. She would write long equations on the blackboard, and Alex's mind would go blank. He could see the shapes and the symbols, but he couldn't grasp the abstract logic. "You're not applying yourself, Alex," she would sigh, handing back another failed test. "You're just not smart enough for this level of math." These words, "not smart enough," became the soundtrack to his life. They echoed in the hallways, in the cafeteria, and in the silence of his own room. They were a heavy weight on his shoulders, pushing him down a little more each day. The social world of high school was just as cruel. His friends, the ones he had grown up with, started to drift away. Mark, who used to be his best friend, was now part of the popular crowd. He was smart, got good grades, and was the star of the basketball team. At first, Mark tried to include Alex, but Alex's constant academic failures became an embarrassment. Soon, the invitations to party stopped. The friendly greetings in the hallway turned into quick, awkward nods. Eventually, they turned into nothing at all. Alex found himself eating lunch alone, sitting at a corner table in the noisy cafeteria, pretending to be absorbed in a book. He watched his former friends laugh and joke, and a profound sense of loneliness washed over him. He was an island, isolated by his own perceived failures. His home life was quiet. He lived with his mother in a small, two-bedroom apartment. His father had left when he was young, and his mother worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. She was a kind, loving woman who always told Alex she was proud of him, but he could see the worry in her eyes every time she looked at his report card. She would come home late, tired from a long day of work, and force a smile. "How was school, sweetie?" she would ask. "It was fine, Mom," Alex would lie, unable to bear the thought of adding to her burdens. He knew she dreamed of a better life for him, a life where he could go to college and achieve all the things she never could. His failures felt like a betrayal of her sacrifices. One particularly grim Tuesday, the weight became almost unbearable. It was a cold, rainy evening. The sky was a canvas of dark gray, and the rain fell in relentless sheets. Alex had just received his midterm report. It was worse than ever. A bright red F in history, a D in math, and a string of C's in everything else. His dream of becoming an engineer felt like a childish fantasy, a cruel joke. He couldn't bring himself to go home and show his mother. So he sat on the wet, cold steps of Oak Ridge High School, the very place that symbolized all his defeats. The rain soaked his jacket, and the cold seeped into his bones, but he barely noticed. He just stared at the piece of paper in his hand, the ink starting to smudge from the raindrops that mixed with the silent tears rolling down his cheeks. He felt utterly and completely defeated. The voices of his teachers, the laughter of his old friends, the worried look in his mother's eyes, they all swirled in his mind, chanting the same thing. You are a failure. You'll never achieve anything. Maybe they're right. The thought was a dark pit, and he felt himself falling into it. Maybe I should just quit trying. The spark of a janitor. Just as Alex was about to surrender to the darkness, a shape emerged from the shadows of the school entrance. It was an old man, stooped with age, pushing a large yellow cart full of cleaning supplies. It was Mr. Samuel, the school janitor. Mr. Samuel was a fixture at Oak Ridge High, as much a part of the building as the brick walls. Most students barely noticed him as he swept the floors or cleaned the windows. He was a quiet, gentle man with kind eyes that seemed to have seen a lifetime of stories. He had a warm, wrinkled smile, though he didn't use it often. He stopped his cart when he saw the lone figure sitting in the pouring rain. He squinted through the downpour and recognized the boy. He had seen Alex many times before, usually by himself, often looking lost in thought. He had also seen the graded papers Alex sometimes left behind in the trash, covered in red ink. Mr. Samuel walked over slowly, his old joints protesting the cold. He held a large, black umbrella, and without a word, he positioned it over Alex's head, shielding him from the rain. Alex looked up, startled. He saw the janitor's weathered face and kind eyes looking down at him, not with pity, but with a deep, quiet understanding. It's a rough evening to be sitting outside, son, Mr. Samuel said, his voice raspy but warm. Alex quickly wiped his tears with the back of his hand, embarrassed to be seen in such a vulnerable state. I'm okay, he mumbled, his voice choked. Mr. Samuel didn't press. He simply stood there, holding the umbrella, sharing the silence. After a long moment, he spoke again. That piece of paper you're holding, it seems to carry a lot of weight. Alex didn't answer. He just clutched the damp report card tighter. You know, Mr. Samuel continued, looking out at the rain-swept street, these walls have seen thousands of students. I've seen the popular ones, the smart ones, the athletic ones. I've seen them succeed, and I've seen them fail. But the names and faces I remember the most, they aren't always the ones who got the best grades. He paused, then looked directly at Alex. Son, the difference between people who win and people who quit is that winners never stop trying. The words were simple. They weren't a grand speech or a complex piece of philosophy, but they hit Alex's heart with the force of lightning. He had been told he wasn't smart, he wasn't good enough, he wasn't trying hard enough. But no one had ever framed it like this. It wasn't about being a genius from the start. It was about the act of not stopping. Alex looked up at the old janitor, his eyes wide with a new kind of emotion. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was a flicker of something. A tiny spark in the overwhelming darkness. Why are you telling me this? Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mr. Samuel offered a small, sad smile. Because I see a lot of myself in you. I used to love drawing. I wanted to be an architect, to design big, beautiful buildings. But life happened. People told me I wasn't cut out for it. It was easier to believe them. It was easier to quit. I've spent 50 years cleaning buildings instead of designing them. Every day, I wonder, what if I hadn't stopped trying? The confession was raw and powerful. It made the janitor's advice real. This wasn't just a motivational quote. It was a lifetime of regret distilled into a single, potent warning. "Don't make my mistake, son," Mr. Samuel said, his voice firm now. "Failure is not falling down. Failure is staying down. That piece of paper doesn't define you. Your report card tells you where you are today. It doesn't have to be where you'll be tomorrow." He gestured toward the school. This big building wasn't made in a day. It was built brick by brick. That's how you have to see it. Every book you read, every problem you solve, every hour you study, it's just one more brick. It's slow. It's hard. Sometimes you'll drop a brick, but you just have to pick it up and place the next one. Brick by brick. Brick by brick. The phrase resonated with Alex's engineering-oriented mind. He could visualize it. A wall, a foundation, a structure being built from nothing. Mr. Samuel patted Alex's shoulder gently. "Go on home, son. It's getting late. Your mother is probably worried." With that, he turned and pushed his cart back into the school, leaving Alex alone on the steps. But Alex wasn't alone anymore. The janitor's words remained, echoing in the quiet space he had left behind. Alex stood up. He looked at the crumpled, wet report card in his hand. For the first time, he didn't see it as a final judgment. He saw it as a starting point, a ground zero from which he could start building. He folded the paper, put it in his pocket, and started walking home, the rain no longer feeling quite so cold. That night, Alex went into his room and took out a clean sheet of paper. In big, bold letters, he wrote down the promise he was making to himself. "I will never give up, no matter what." He taped it to the wall above his desk, right where he would see it every single morning. The journey ahead was going to be long and incredibly difficult. He knew that. But for the first time in a very long time, he felt like he had a map. And the first step was called try again. Brick by brick. The next morning, Alex's alarm clock went off at 5 a.m. The sky outside was still dark, and the warmth of his bed was incredibly tempting. His mind immediately produced a dozen excuses to go back to sleep. But then his eyes landed on the sign above his desk. "I will never give up." He remembered Mr. Samuel's voice. Brick by brick. He threw off the covers, and his feet hit the cold wooden floor. This was his first brick. He started with his most feared enemy, the history textbook. Instead of just trying to read and memorize the dense chapters, he decided to try something different. He got a large notebook and started creating timelines, drawing pictures of kings and battles. He treated it like a puzzle, a story he needed to piece together. He found documentaries online that brought the historical events to life with visuals and narration. It was slow, frustrating work. Some mornings, he would spend an hour on a single page, but he didn't stop. After his morning study session, he would go to school with a new mindset. He was no longer there to just survive the day. He was there to learn. He started sitting in the front row of Mr. Harrison's class. He still didn't understand everything, but he listened actively. He wrote down questions, even if he was too scared to ask them out loud. One day, he stayed after class. His heart was pounding as he approached Mr. Harrison's desk. "Sir," he started, his voice trembling slightly, "I didn't understand the part about the Magna Carta. Could you explain it again?" Mr. Harrison looked up, surprised. He was used to Alex being silent and disengaged. He saw the genuine confusion and effort in the boy's eyes. For the first time, his stern expression softened, just a little. He spent 10 minutes explaining the concept in simpler terms, drawing a diagram on the board. Alex finally understood. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. It was another brick laid perfectly in place. He applied this new approach to all his subjects. For math, he realized he couldn't just look at the equations. He needed to do them. He bought cheap notebooks and filled them with practice problems, page after page, until his hands cramped. He watched online tutorials where teachers explained concepts visually, using blocks and graphs. Slowly, painstakingly, the abstract symbols started to make sense. They became tools, not just random marks on a page. His efforts didn't go unnoticed. The school librarian, a kind woman named Mizania, saw Alex in the library every day after school. He wasn't just hiding there anymore. He was working. He would be surrounded by books, his brow furrowed in concentration. She started helping him, suggesting books that explained difficult topics in easier ways and showing him how to use the library's research databases. She became a quiet ally in his lonely battle. Even more significant was the support he found in an unexpected place, the school's workshop. The shop class was taught by Mr. David, a young, energetic teacher who saw the spark in Alex that others had missed. In shop class, Alex was a different person. He could take a blueprint and build a perfect wooden box. He understood how motors and levers worked instinctively. Mr. David saw Alex's potential. "You have a gift for this, Alex," he said one afternoon, watching Alex carefully solder a circuit board for a small robot he was building as a personal project. "You see the world in 3 dimensions. You understand how things fit together. That's a different kind of intelligence. It's the intelligence of an engineer." Hearing the word engineer from a teacher was like a balm on his wounded confidence. Mr. David started mentoring him, giving him more complex projects and lending him books on robotics and basic engineering principles. The workshop became Alex's sanctuary, a place where his dreams felt real and achievable. But the path was not a straight line up. There were many moments of doubt and failure. He studied for weeks for a major math test, filling notebooks with practice problems. He walked into the test feeling more prepared than ever before. He walked out and got a C-. It was a passing grade, an improvement from his usual D's and F's, but it felt like a slap in the face after so much hard work. That evening, he felt the old despair creeping back in. He found himself walking the now empty hallways of the school, his steps leading him to the spot where he had spoken with Mr. Samuel. As if by fate, the old janitor was there, sweeping the floor. He saw the look on Alex's face. "Dropped a brick today, did we?" Mr. Samuel asked gently. Alex nodded, his throat too tight to speak. "That's all right," the janitor said, leaning on his broom. "Happens to everyone. The important thing isn't that you dropped it. The important thing is what you do next. Are you going to stare at the dropped brick all day, or are you going to pick up the next one?" The simple wisdom once again cut through Alex's frustration. AC wasn't a wall. It was just a crooked brick. Tomorrow he would lay a straighter one. Months turned into a year. Alex's routine was relentless. 5 a.m. study sessions, active listening in class, hours in the library, late nights in the workshop. He gave up video games and television. His social life was still non-existent, but he wasn't lonely anymore. He was on a mission. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. His C in math became a C, then a C+. He handed in a history essay that was so well-researched that Mr. Harrison gave him a B and wrote, "Good work, Alex," at the top. The comment was worth more to Alex than any A+ he could have imagined. The other students started to notice. They saw him answering questions in class. They heard teachers praising his effort. The snickering stopped. It was replaced by a quiet, grudging respect. One day, a student who was struggling in science asked Alex for help. Alex, surprised, sat down and explained the concept of photosynthesis to him. He found that teaching someone else helped him understand the material even better. By the end of his junior year, his report card was unrecognizable. It was filled with B's and even a few A's, especially in science and math. The dream of college, once a distant star, now felt within reach. The first summit, his final year of high school, was a culmination of all his hard work. Alex was no longer the boy who hid in the back of the classroom. He was an active participant, a student known for his perseverance. His project for the annual science fair, a small, voice-activated robotic arm he had designed and built in Mr. David's workshop, won first place. He stood on the auditorium stage, demonstrating his creation, and saw his mother in the audience, her face beaming with a pride so intense it looked like it could light up the entire room. Graduation day arrived on a bright, sunny afternoon in June. The air was filled with excitement and the bittersweet feeling of an ending and a beginning. Alex sat among his classmates, wearing his cap and gown. He looked out at the crowd and saw his mother, waving, tears of joy streaming down her face. And standing near the back, leaning against a wall, was Mr. Samuel, in his regular janitor uniform but with a look of immense satisfaction on his face. He gave Alex a slow, respectful nod. During the ceremony, the principal announced a special award. This award is for the student who has shown the most outstanding growth, determination, and spirit. It is the Never Give Up Award, and this year it goes to Alex Carter. The auditorium erupted in applause. As Alex walked to the stage to receive his plaque, he passed his old friend, Mark. Mark looked him in the eye and gave him a genuine, admiring smile. It was a silent apology and a sign of respect, and it meant the world to Alex. He shook the principal's hand, his own hands trembling. He looked at the plaque. It wasn't just a piece of wood and metal, it was proof. It was a monument built brick by brick. After the ceremony, as families were taking pictures, Mr. Harrison approached him. The stern history teacher looked different now, his expression softer. "Alex," he said, extending his hand, I want to apologize. I misjudged you. Your success is entirely your own, and you have taught me a valuable lesson as a teacher. You have earned every bit of it. Congratulations." Alex shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." With his high school diploma in hand and an acceptance letter from a state university's engineering program in his pocket, Alex felt like he was standing on top of a mountain. He had done it. He had proved them all wrong. Most importantly, he had proved to himself that he could do it. But he knew this wasn't the end. It was just the first summit. There were higher mountains to climb. A new mountain, a new climb. University was a different world. It was bigger, more anonymous, and far more demanding than Oak Ridge High. His engineering classes were filled with students who had been at the top of their own high schools. The competition was fierce, and the coursework was incredibly challenging. The concepts that he had fought so hard to master in high school were now just the basics, the starting point. For a moment, the old fears resurfaced. The feeling of being not smart enough whispered at the edges of his mind. The first few weeks were overwhelming. He was away from home, away from the familiar support of his mother, Ms. Anya, and Mr. David. He was just another face in a lecture hall of 300 students. But then he remembered the promise. He remembered the feeling of laying that first brick at 5 a.m. He had a system now, a philosophy that had been forged in failure and resilience. He applied the brick-by-brick method to his new life. He broke down the massive, complex university subjects into small, manageable tasks. He spent his evenings in the university library, a place that now felt like home. He was not afraid to go to his professor's office hours to ask questions until he understood. He formed a study group with a few other serious students, and they tackled difficult problem sets together, each member contributing their strengths. Alex found that his practical, visual way of understanding things was often a great help to his friends who were more theoretically minded. To support himself and ease the financial burden on his mother, he got a part-time job in the university's IT department, fixing computers and helping students with software problems. The work was another form of learning, another way to lay bricks. Years passed in a blur of hard work, late nights, and the quiet satisfaction of progress. There were difficult exams, projects that failed, and moments of exhaustion where quitting seemed like a sweet relief. But every time, Alex would look at the invisible sign in his mind, "I will never give up," and he would pick up the next brick. He excelled in his engineering courses. His mind, which had struggled with memorizing historical dates, came alive when designing circuits or writing code. He discovered that he had a unique talent for seeing a problem and visualizing an elegant, simple solution. His professors recognized his dedication and his innovative thinking. He wasn't just another student anymore. He was a promising young engineer. The promise fulfilled. For years after he had first set foot on campus, Alex Carter stood on another stage, this time in a much larger auditorium. He was wearing a different cap and gown, and in his hand, he was about to receive his university degree in mechanical engineering with honors. He looked out at the vast audience. His eyes found his mother, who was crying openly, her hands clasped to her heart. Her dream for him had come true, and sitting right next to her, in a suit that Alex had bought for him, was Mr. Samuel. The old janitor had retired a few years back, but he had driven 3 hours to be there. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated pride. When Alex's name was called, the applause was loud. As he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, his entire journey flashed before his eyes. The boy crying on the school steps, the janitor's kind eyes, the 5 a.m. alarms, the thousands of bricks laid one by one, the small victories, and the crushing setbacks. He had done it. He had built his future, not with innate genius, but with something far more powerful, the refusal to quit. After the ceremony, he found his mother and Mr. Samuel. His mother hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. "I am so proud of you, Alex," she whispered.
So proud.
Then he turned to Mr. Samuel. The old man's eyes were glistening. "You see, son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I told you. The winners are the ones who just don't stop." Alex looked at the man who had changed his life with a few simple words. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mr. Samuel. You gave me the blueprint." "No, son," the old janitor replied, shaking his head. "The blueprint was always inside you. I just helped you find the courage to start building." Alex Carter went on to become a successful engineer, designing innovative medical devices that helped thousands of people. He never forgot where he came from. He often visited schools in underprivileged areas, telling his story to students who, like him, felt lost or defeated. And he always ended his talk with the same simple, powerful message. Success doesn't come to those who are the smartest or the most talented. It doesn't come to those who wait for a lucky break. It comes to those who face failure, who feel the weight of the world on their shoulders, and who, despite it all, make a simple promise to themselves to lay the next brick, to take the next step, and to never, ever give up.